Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
In May of this year, the United States Department of the Interior released the Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative Investigative Report, a 106-page report unveiling details for the first time that the federal government operated or supported 408 boarding schools across 37 states between the years 1819 and 1969. At the time of the report's release, the Interior Department announced the Road to Healing tour to be held at various locations in Indian country. So far, there have been 2 stops on the tour, in Oklahoma and in Michigan. Today, we have a very special guest, and that is the U.S. Department of the Interior Secretary, Deb Haaland. Welcome, Madam Secretary, to Native Bidaské. Tyler, and hi, Secretary Haaland. Pleasure to have you.
Yes, thank you so much.
And just for your information, I have Jenna Kuntz on my line as well. She's done over half of our Indian boarding schools, so I know you don't mind, but you've met Jenna before, so.
Yes.
Secretary Haaland, you've had 2 listening tours now for the Road to Healing, and I guess my question is, what have you learned? I know you've heard from the survivors, but what have you learned from tribal leaders and what they may need in the federal government, from the federal government, to move forward towards healing?
Yes. And as you might know, we're talking with tribal leaders even when we're not at a Road to Healing event. We're in close contact with them, and they had a tremendous amount of input, and we consulted with them extensively over this entire initiative. So I'll say what I always say. It's up to the tribal leaders on how they want to deal with things. I know that you knew that I went to Carlisle Indian School when several tribes wanted to essentially repatriate the children from Carlisle back to their ancestral homelands. Not every tribe may want to do that, but if they, we're just whatever they want us to help them with, however they want to see, their version of healing with respect to this initiative. That's what we want to do. So the intergenerational trauma, of course, has been incredibly burdensome, and so we're cognizant of that too. If tribal leaders want additional help with respect to this issue, we'll just do whatever we possibly can. I know that justice isn't always going to look the same for everyone, but I think all of us can agree that, and every tribe can agree that our work with native language revitalization is incredibly important. So those are some of the things I know that we are paying attention to.
Thank you for that. Jenna?
Yes, thanks for that, Secretary Haaland, and hello. To piggyback off that question of what you're hearing from tribal leaders and how they're asking for government assistance, what are some through lines that you're hearing from boarding school survivors and their descendants? I know it's hard to generalize because it's likely so across the board, but is there anything that's particularly stuck out to you?
Well, I think so we've done 2 Road to Healing events so far, and they've each lasted over 6 hours each. The crowd thins out a little bit over time, but there are people who absolutely want to be heard. And so we are there, right? We understand that sometimes just getting things off your chest, right? Just being able to say it out loud, it means something to them. So I think most of all, we want to make sure that we are there to listen. Additionally, the support that that we can offer and that the Indian Health Service has been on hand for, it seems that it's incredibly helpful to them as well. So so I just, it's both. We've done two so far. Both, each one has been different from the other, different experiences. Some of the stories from Michigan, they seemed so recent, right?
Yes.
Still people who worked at the school alive in their communities. And it's just, I think we just want to be there to listen. We do want to have this oral history so that all of, every American knows that this happened. And there, of course, the healing part is the most important thing.
Yes, Madam Secretary, I was actually at both of those, and I did see the difference. And listening to those stories for 6 hours is pretty impactful. I'm thinking, how are you dealing with this? We asked Assistant Secretary Brian Newland back when he was on our program just after the release of the report in May, how you guys are dealing with it at Interior. I mean, my heart goes out to you. How are you dealing with it?
Thank you for that question, Levi. And first, Levi, thank you so much for coming to our events and taking a sincere interest in making sure that you are talking about this so that all of Indian country can hear. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, it tires me out,
Yes.
right? It takes a lot out of you to listen and tell you. I've taken copious notes at both of our events so that I can always remind myself of what their story. Every single person's story is important to me. So I'll be quite honest with you. When I am under that kind of when I'm taking that information in, it does take a lot out of me. I get really tired. I get in the car and I just feel like your body reacts to that someone else's trauma. And of course, me initially, I really want to put my arms around each person and tell them that things are going to be okay. Obviously, that's hard. That's a difficult thing to do. But my heart is theirs while I'm there, and so I just recognize how important it is to them, and it is. It's a sacrifice for all of us, right? My grandmother went to boarding school. I suffer from the intergenerational trauma as much as anybody, so I understand. And so because I understand it, I am going to be understanding to other people.
It's very emotional because my grandmother went to a boarding school in Genoa, out in Nebraska, and I have to tell you, after I left Oklahoma, it took me 2 days to really get back to use the term normal, but it really does shake you. So we really appreciate what you do, Secretary Haaland. This is very, very important work towards healing. So thanks so much. Miigwech. Anna, do you have another question?
Yeah, and thank you, Melissa, also for sharing that background on background. The context is good to know, and it's good to hear that you all are taking care of yourselves as you go about this really difficult work. And on that note, we know that it's just the beginning of this difficult work. This is the Road to Healing tour we're still at the beginning of, and this is only the initial Federal Indian Boarding School report that has been released this year. And so on that note, what is the progress that has any progress been made towards further investigation outside of the Road to Healing tour?
Right. So the team is working on a second report right now.
Okay.
I can't tell you when that will be done, but we're very grateful to have the support of Congress.
Mhm.
for an additional $7 million toward this initiative. So I am, as I said, I'm incredibly grateful that Congress has recognized that this is an issue that is important to our entire country. And so we are going to put that money to good use. They're working on a second report right now. I can't tell you exactly what will be in that report, but certainly the oral history that we have been able to gain since starting the Road to Healing tour will likely be a part of that.
Mm.
Secretary Haaland, I know that you were part of the introduction of the HR 544. It may have had a different number back then, but the Truth and Healing Commission, the Indian boarding schools that's going through Congress right now. Are you happy with the current language, and you feel like it's going to get passed sooner than later?
Well, of course, I would never second guess how things move for Congress. I was in Congress, and I know there's a lot. Sometimes you catch things at a good time and it sails through. Other times it's a little painstaking. So as it works its way through, I believe we testified on this issue, and we were supportive of the language and the way it was written. Grateful to my former colleagues for moving that forward, and so we'll just hope for the best.
Okay, thank you. Jenna, you have the last question.
Thank you. Yes, I do. It's about Carlisle, Secretary Haaland. I know you're read into Carlisle as you were there, as I was last summer or the summer before, summer 2021, when the Rosebud were returning 9 of their ancestors. And my question is about whether or not you think the Army should be following NAGPRA specifically in repatriating the remains of ancestors buried at Carlisle, and whether or not you can do anything to compel them to do so.
It was my understanding that those graves did not fall under NAGPRA, but I'm not the attorneys who figure all those things out. So, of course, I just want you to know that for our part, we will be incredibly supportive on whatever it is we're charged with doing without delay when it comes to those children who died while they were in school there. So I know that with respect to the children who were taken back home last summer, the Army was very, very supportive all along the way. So I was grateful for that. Whatever our responsibility is with respect to that, we will rise to the occasion and help in any way we possibly can. Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Secretary Haaland and Tyler and Melissa. We really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Chi Miigwech.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chi Miigwech.